Who is next under the Tudorscope? Round 1, Vote 3. Hello, I'm HG Tudor. Tom Hanks made it clearly through the first round of voting. But who has joined him? Well, at the closure of voting earlier today, Teal Swan found herself with 7% of the vote. Mia Farrow, 9% of the vote. Klaus Schwab, 21%. Jordan Peterson, 22%. And Diana, Princess of Wales, on 41%, nearly twice that of the nearest individual, Jordan Peterson. Interestingly, early on in the voting, Peterson was ahead of Diana by a couple of percentage points, but then was soon overtaken with a surge of voting moving in her behaviour. And as time went on, Klaus Schwab found himself almost catching up the Canadian psychologist. But it is Diana, by some margin, who finds herself the approved choice and therefore moves into round 2 to join Tom Hanks. Remember, these are the people that you have suggested in the comments section to the original video that have been selected by me on the basis of those that were mentioned repeatedly and those which I deem would make interesting analyses also. Accordingly, there might be some people that have been mentioned a few times, but I don't think that they would be particularly interesting, Lizzo being an example of that. Now, we move on to our third selection. Again, there are 5 people, and for those of you who have not been paying attention, you're able to vote after the video or shortly thereafter in the community section of the channel. So all you do is go to the channel, and where it shows videos, shorts, live, playlists, etc., there's a section called Community. You go in there and you'll find the poll, and you can cast your vote and add your additional comment also, perhaps putting forward a convincing argument to perhaps inspire other people to vote in the way that you have. Let's get on and bring forth our first subject. Our first subject under the Tudorscope was the youngest child of Nikolai and Dranafil. Her father died when she was just 8 years old. She was given a name which means rosebud or little flower. And in her early years, she became fascinated by the stories of people providing service. By the age of 12, she was convinced that she should commit herself to a life of service. She left home at age 18 to move to a new island, and the purpose of which was to enable her to learn English. English was the language of instruction. She did not see her mother or her sister again. After spending time in Ireland to learn English, she then arrived in India in 1929, where she learned Bengali and taught at St. Teresa's school near her convent. She took her first religious vows on the 24th of May 1931. She chose to be named after the patron saint of missionaries. Because a nun in the convent had already chosen that name, she changed the spelling of it. She took solemn vows on the 14th of May 1937 while she was a teacher at the Loreto Convent School in eastern Calcutta, taking the style of a particular name by way of custom. She served there for nearly 20 years and was appointed in headmistress in 1944. She enjoyed teaching at the school, but was increasingly disturbed by the poverty that surrounded her. A famine in 1943 brought misery and death to the city, and the August 1946 Direct Action Day began a period of Muslim and Hindu violence. In 1946, during a visit to Darjeeling by train, the subject felt that she heard the call of her inner conscience to serve the poor of India for Jesus. She asked for and received permission to leave the school. In 1950, she founded the Missionaries of Charity, choosing a white sari with 2 blue borders as the order's habit. On the 10th of September 1946, she experienced what she later described as the call within the call, when she travelled by train to the Loreto convent in Darjeeling from Calcutta for her annual retreat. I was to leave the convent and help the poor while living among them. It was an order. To fail would have been to break the faith. Though no one knew it at the time, Sister Teresa had just become Mother Teresa. Our first subject is Mother Teresa. Our second subject was born an only child. Her parents had only been married the year before. Apparently, when she was born, her parents were as pleased as if she had been born a boy. Unfortunately for our subject, within a month of her birth, both her parents were dead. Her mother died on the 28th of April of fever, and her father died on the 4th of May. It was decreed that she was to be raised at the French court, but there was a refusal issued by the Pope. Instead, our subject was first cared for by her paternal grandmother. After her grandmother died, our subject joined her cousins and was raised by her aunt. She found herself taken hostage and was placed in a series of convents. The final one was her home for 3 years. Apparently, these were the 3 happiest of her entire life. Eventually, the city that she was held in was laid siege, and as the siege dragged on, voices called for her to be killed and exposed naked and chained to the city walls. Some even suggested that the subject be handed over to the troops to be used for their sexual gratification. Eventually, the city surrendered, and she was summoned from her convent to join a particular person in Rome. The individual greeted her with open arms and tears in his eyes, and then set about the business of finding her a husband. She was described as small of stature and thin and without delicate features, but having the protruding eyes peculiar to her family. Suitors lined up for her hand included James V of Scotland, who sent the Duke of Albany to Clement to conclude a marriage in April and November. When Francis I of France proposed his second son, Henry, Duke of Orleans, in early 1533, Clement jumped at the offer. Henry was a prize catch for our subject, who, despite her wealth, was of common origin. The wedding, a grand affair marked by extravagant display and gift-giving, took place in Marseille. Prince Henry danced and jousted for the subject. The 14-year-old couple left their wedding ball at midnight to perform their nuptial duties. Henry arrived in the bedroom with King Francis, who was said to have stayed until the marriage was consummated. He noted that each had shown valour in the joust. Clement visited the newlyweds in bed the next morning and added his blessings to the night's proceedings. Our subject saw little of her husband in their first year of marriage, but the ladies of the court, impressed with her intelligence and keenness to please, treated her well. However, the death of her uncle Clement on the 25th of September 1534 undermined her standing in the French court. The next pope was elected and took the title Paul III. He felt no obligation to keep Clement's promises, broke the alliance with Francis, and refused to continue paying her huge dowry. King Francis lamented, "The girl has come to me stark naked." Prince Henry showed no interest in our subject as a wife. Instead, he openly took mistresses. For the first 10 years of the marriage, the royal couple failed to produce any children together. In 1537, he had a brief affair with Philippa Ducci, who gave birth to a daughter whom he publicly acknowledged. This proved that Henry was fertile and added to the pressure on our subject to produce a child. She was expected to provide a future heir to the throne, Many people advised the king and the Dauphin to repudiate her, since it was necessary to continue the line of France. Divorce was discussed. In desperation, she tried every known trick for getting pregnant, such as placing cow dung and ground stag antlers on her source of life and drinking mule's urine. On the 19th of January 1544, she at last gave birth to a son named after King Francis. She became Queen Consort of France in 1547. She came from a powerful Florentine family. She was Queen of France from 1547 to 1559 by marriage to King Henry II, and mother of French kings Francis II, Charles IX, and Henry III. The years during which her sons reigned have been called the age of our subject's name, since she had extensive, if at times varying, influence in the political life of France. Her name, Catherine de' Medici. She is our second subject. Our third subject was born in 1972. His family moved, where he was educated at a Catholic college. He then attended university, and he was a resident of a college and graduated with a Bachelor of Arts degree in Politics and Classics in 1996. After graduating, our subject became an electorate officer for a Labour MP. He worked at the party's head office from 1999 to 2002, initially as an organiser and then as Assistant State Secretary. He served as the Minister for Consumer Affairs, and the following year he was later appointed Minister for Health, until the defeat of the government at the 2010 election. Whilst in opposition, he was elected leader of the Labour Party and became leader of the opposition. After one term in opposition, he led Labour to victory in the 2014 election. His party had an increased majority, and he led them to victory during the 2018 election and to a third landslide victory at the 2022 election, again increasing the party's majority in the House. He has been a member of Labour's socialist left faction since he joined the party. Having been an advocate for environmentalism and climate change, he supported the pledge for net zero emissions by 2050 and started plans to renationalise the state electricity grid following the 2022 state election. He's been a long-time Republican and supports abolishing the constitutional monarchy in favour of a federal republic. He's voiced support throughout his career for same-sex marriage, the protection and expansion of LGBT rights, and the promotion of awareness and respect for transgender and transitioning people, particularly amongst the young. In 2016, he issued a formal apology on behalf of the government to the LGBT community, and specifically members of the community who have been charged with homosexual offences and crimes in the state prior to the decriminalisation of homosexuality in 1981. He said, on behalf of the Parliament, the government and the people of this state, for the laws we passed and the laws we ruined and the standards and the lives we ruined and the standards we set, we are sorry, humbly, deeply sorry. He is Catholic and has been an outspoken critic of the Catholic Church for their failure to adequately respond to extensive issues regarding to child sexual abuse. On the death of the country's most senior Catholic, Andrews remarked that his government would make no offer for a state funeral and instead made the following statement. For victim survivors, I want to send the clearest possible message. We see you, we believe you, we support you, and you're at the centre of not only our thoughts, not only our words, but our actions. He has somewhat conservative views towards illicit drugs, being against the decriminalisation of recreational marijuana and against pill testing at music festivals. He's married and has 3 children. He found controversy with regard to a lockdown that was put in place within his state. Consequence of that meant that he attracted considerable criticism. He is an Australian, and our third subject is the politician who was Premier of Victoria, Dan Andrews. Our fourth subject was born in 1967 in Georgia, in a suburb of Atlanta. She is of English, Scottish, Irish, Welsh, German, and Swedish descent. Her father was a Baptist, her mother a Catholic, and she was raised Catholic. She has an older brother from whom she was estranged for several years, until 2004. She has a sister and a niece, and a younger half-sister. Her parents, one-time actors and playwrights, met while performing in theatrical productions for the armed forces. They later co-founded the Atlanta Actors and Writers Workshop in Atlanta, off Juniper Street in Midtown. They ran a children's acting school while they were expecting their child. The children of Coretta and Martin Luther King Jr. attended the school. Her parents married in 1955. Her mother filed for divorce in 1971, and the divorce was finalized in early 1972. From 1972, the subject lived in Georgia, where she attended Fitzhugh Lee Elementary School. In 1972, her mother remarried. This man was abusive and often unemployed, and our subject despised him. The couple had a daughter who died in 2014 of an apparent drug overdose. The marriage ended in 1983 with the subject's mother divorcing this individual on cruelty grounds. She had stated that marrying him was the biggest mistake of her life. Her own father died of cancer when she was 10. Our subject wanted to be a veterinarian as a child. She played the clarinet in the school band. After graduation, she attended university but didn't graduate. She then went off to New York City to pursue a career in acting. Once there, she signed with the Click modelling agency and enrolled in acting classes. Following her first television appearance as a juvenile rape victim in the first season of the series Crime Story, she made her big screen debut with an appearance in a dramedy alongside Liam Neeson and Justine Bateman as a band member looking for a summer gig. She had filmed a small role in 1987 opposite her brother in Blood Red, though she only had 2 words of dialogue, and it wasn't released until 1989. She had a role in the 4th season finale of Miami Vice, and her first critical success with moviegoers came in an independent romantic comedy in which she played a Portuguese-American teenage girl working as a waitress. She was described as a major beauty with a fierce energy, and a critic observed that the film may someday become known for the movie stars it showcased back before they became stars. All of the young actors in this movie have genuine gifts. In another film, she starred as a young bride with diabetes, alongside Sally Field, Dolly Parton, Shirley MacLaine, and Daryl Hannah. The filmmakers were both looking at Laura Dern and Winona Ryder when the casting director insisted that they see our subject, who was then filming the earlier film where she played a waitress. The casting director stated she walked into the room and that smile lit everything up, and I said, "That's my sister," so she joined the party and she was magnificent. The director was notoriously tough on her as a newcomer, with Sally Field admitting that he went after the subject with a vengeance, as this was pretty much her first big film. Nevertheless, the film was a critical and commercial darling when it was released, and she received her first Academy Award nomination and first Golden Globe win for Best Supporting Actress in a Motion Picture for her performance. Our subject is known for her leading roles in films encompassing a variety of genres. She has received multiple accolades, including an Academy Award, a BAFTA, and 3 Golden Globe Awards. The film in which she has starred have collectively grossed over $3.9 billion globally, making her one of Hollywood's most bankable stars. She has starred in numerous commercially successful films throughout the 1990s, including the cult romantic comedies My Best Friend's Wedding, Notting Hill, Runaway Bride, before winning the Academy Award for Best Actress for her performance in the biographical drama Erin Brockovich. She's achieved further film success in Ocean's 11, Ocean's 12, Charlie Wilson's War, Valentine's Day, Eat, Pray, Love, Wonder, and Ticket to Paradise. She is, of course, Julia Roberts. Our fifth and final subject was born into poverty. She was one of 12 children. Her middle name comes from a maternal great-great-grandmother, Rebecca. Her father worked in the mountains, first as a sharecropper and later tending his own small tobacco farm and acreage. He also worked construction jobs to supplement the farm's small income. Despite her father's illiteracy, the subject has often commented that he was one of the smartest people she had ever known in regards to business and making a profit. Her mother cared for their large family. Her 11 pregnancies, the 10th being twins in 20 years, made her a mother of 12 by the age of 35. The individual credits her talent to her mother. Often in poor health, she still managed to keep house and entertain her children with folklore and ancient ballads. Having Welsh ancestors, her mother knew many old ballads that immigrants that had brought from the British Isles in the 18th and 19th century. Her father, the subject's grandfather, was a Pentecostal preacher, and the subject and her siblings all attended church regularly. The subject has long credited her father for her business savvy, and her mother's family for her talent. When our subject was a young girl, the family moved to a farm at Locust Ridge. Most of her cherished memories of youth happened there. Today, a replica of the Locust Ridge cabin resides at her namesake theme park. The farm acreage and surrounding woodland inspired her to write one of her songs in the 1970s. Years after the farm was sold, the subject bought it back in the late 1980s. Her brother Bobby helped with building restoration and new construction. The subject described her family as being dirt poor. Her father paid a missionary with a sack of cornmeal for delivering her. The subject would write a song about the man that delivered her when she was grown. She also outlined her family's poverty in her early songs. For 6 or 7 years, the subject and her family lived in their rustic one-bedroom cabin on their small subsistence farm on Locust Ridge. This was a predominantly Pentecostal area located north of the Greenbrier Valley. Music played an important role in her early life. She was brought up in the Church of God, in a congregation her grandfather pastored. Her earliest public performances were in the church, beginning at age 6. At 7, she started playing a homemade guitar. When she was 8, her uncle bought her her first real guitar. She began performing as a child, singing on local radio and television programs. By 10, she was appearing on television. Age 13, she was recording on a small Louisiana label, Gold Band Records, and appeared where she met Johnny Cash, who encouraged her to follow her own instincts regarding her career. After graduating from high school in 1964, she moved to Nashville the next day. Her initial success came as a songwriter, having signed with Combine Publishing shortly after her arrival. With her frequent songwriting partner, her uncle, she wrote several charting singles during this time, including 2 top 10 hits for Bill Phillips. Her songs were recorded by many other artists during this period, including Kitty Wells and Hank Williams Jr. She signed with Monument Records in 1965 at the age of 19. She was initially pitched as a bubblegum pop singer. She released a string of singles, but the only one that charted did not crack the Billboard Hot 100. Although she expressed a desire to record different material, Monument resisted, thinking her unique high soprano voice was not suited to the genre. The individual is an American singer-songwriter, musician, actress, philanthropist, and businesswoman, known primarily for her decades-long career in country music. After achieving success as a songwriter for others, she made her debut album in 1967, which led to success during the remainder of the 1960s, both as a solo artist and with a series of duet albums, before her sales and chart peak came during the 1970s and continued into the 1980s. With a career spanning over 50 years, she has been described as a country music legend and has sold more than 100 million records worldwide, making her one of the best-selling female artists of all time. She has received 11 Grammy Awards out of 50 nominations, including the Lifetime Achievement Award, 10 Country Music Association Awards, including Entertainer of the Year, and is one of only 7 female artists to win the Country Music Association's Entertainer of the Year award, 5 Academy of Country Music Awards, also including Entertainer of the Year, 4 People's Choice Awards, 3 American Music Awards. She is also in a select group to have received at least 1 nomination from the Academy Awards, Grammy Awards, Tony Awards, and Emmy Awards. In 1999, the subject was inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame. In 2005, she received the National Medal of Arts, and in 2022, she was nominated for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, a nomination she had initially declined but ultimately accepted and was subsequently inducted. She is, of course, Dolly Parton. Thus, that concludes our 5 nominees: Mother Teresa, Catherine de' Medici, Dan Andrews, Julia Roberts, and Dolly Parton. In order to vote, go to the community section, and there you can do so and see how it progresses to see if your favourite makes it through to the next round. And then we will bring on our next selection. I'm HG Tudor. Thank you for listening.